Oh. What's up, everybody? Super excited to bring this podcast back, the Serious Ventures podcast. And again, every time I have a presentation or a conversation with my invitees, today we have Leigh Ann Buchanan, such an important person that has played a great role in my life and the life of many other kids, students around the Miami area. And so, uh, with this conversation, what I want to get across is you know, to build more leadership skills and uh, build a better persona for yourself and for the people around you. Because since 2018, the trip that we did to Ghana, Africa, with the NIA project, my life changed to a 180 degrees. Seriously, everything went much better, and every day I keep getting better and better. So thank you for being here, Leigh Ann. I'm going to let you give you the mic and introduce yourself.
Oh, so introductions, I always think like introductions can be very loaded questions because in one way, they're often our default to talk about what we do versus who we are. So I think the best way to introduce myself, and I'm super excited to be here, by the way, is
Thank you.
that I am someone that is focused on people, purpose, and impact. And what that looks like in my world is I write. I am a founder, so I start things that are often platforms for exponential growth and impact in my community. I also facilitate and help to moderate a lot of conversations in a very thoughtful way that sometimes gets to the heart of the issue, which I often think like people don't often do in the art of dialogue. And then the other thing is I produce quietly. I've been behind the scenes, like kind of directing and creating a lot of content, but never attach my name to it. But now I am starting to roll out a lot of things that I am helping to create that is really focused on how do we go deeper with our why and really pursue thoughtful content that will create more dialogues, create more after conversations and deeper dives with those you know, don't know, and perhaps those you love.
It's fascinating. I mean, all the things that you talk every time you open your mouth, I just get excited for something powerful, something deep, something genuinely, that's impactful. So, um, thank you for sharing that. And where, I guess we can go back and forth in different areas. Why writing and not something else, and why being behind the scenes?
So it's interesting. That's a great question, Adolfo. I think writing because it is the clearest form of communication that I know. And, if you know me, I like to write. For the last couple
Yes,
of
yes,
years, I've
very good.
released a, a newsletter to about, I think, close to 16, 20,000 people or so through my day
Wow.
job. And writing is something that I've always done. And now I'm kind of diving deeper into being more intentional about writing. Um, Writing every day for at least 90 minutes, whether it's a book or another project, but mostly books
Mm,
um, from now going forward. And then behind the scenes, I think that speaks to, just to be real transparent here, like I think I've stayed behind the scenes in part because I've struggled a lot with like unworthiness and feeling like I shouldn't put my name on something that I have had the hand in designing, envisioning, and creating. And so for a while, yeah, I've been behind a lot of things that I quietly put my, stay behind the scenes.
yeah,
But then I realized that that neither serves me nor serves the people that are looking perhaps up to me and to wonder what I'm up to and to know that I'm actually working on a lot more than they might realize. So, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people often struggle with is feeling like they're not worthy of the more public recognition, or that public recognition, at least in my case, means that I am like ego driven and not purpose driven, which I think are two separate kind of ways to think about opportunities.
that's crazy. That's good. I mean, I struggle with it myself, and getting in the online world, the digital marketing stuff, and all that good stuff. I learned that it's called the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
So every day, before even creating a post for Instagram or something like that, writing a caption, I struggle with like, does it really sound like myself? Is someone going to judge and say, Adolfo, is that really you or something like that? So I thank you for sharing it. Again, sharing the vulnerability here, and realizing that everyone probably has the same thoughts. So in my future, what I see is that, hopefully, what you're saying is that you're planning to put your name on more of the things that you produce. So hopefully, you keep on impacting people like myself, and hopefully myself, I share more of that stuff too. And what about let's talk about the purpose, your pillars,
Yep.
your values.
So I think that the pillars of my purpose statement are separate from my values. So we'll put values aside for a moment.
Okay.
So and you know this because we do this in the project.
Yes. Yes.
I think people fail to ask why often in life of themselves and of everything they do. And I often, probably too often, am asking why. And I don't think we ought to do anything if we don't have clarity or at least some like direction on the why, because then we're just kind of moving through life and not really intentionally thinking about how do we maximize our time. And so for me, and what I talk to the NIA fellows a lot about, when I talk to a lot of other people about, is when you can get clarity on purpose. And I think purpose is often something you discover and it happens over time, and it's not tied to a job, it's not tied to a career, it's not tied to a title. For example, like I'm a recovering attorney, I still hold a law license, but my purpose isn't tied to that. And it's also not tied to the platforms that we have the privilege and honor of really cultivating and growing, much like these conversation series. I think purpose is tied to a deep knowledge of yourself and understanding the value for which you can add to the world using your God-given superpowers, gifts, talents for the benefit of both yourself and others, right? And
Yep.
so if you can encapsulate that into a statement or a mantra that really resonates and serves perhaps as your North Star and constant reminder of the barometer by which you can measure your activity, then I think it really adds value. So for me, my purpose statement, and I say it all the time, and you guys and NIA fellows know it, and I just said it in my intro, is people, purpose, and impact over everything else. And recently, as have been thinking a lot about some of the conversations I want to facilitate, that second part, over everything else, is actually the most important piece, because that is kind of like the knife that allows me to slice through the noise, because it's really asking, what are you pursuing to the exclusion of everything else? And I often say when I talk to partners, if it doesn't align with like how I view supporting people and really investing in people, if it doesn't align with purpose, helping people connect to purpose, and purpose doesn't mean their purpose, it means purpose in general. And impact to me is things exponentially scalable. So not just something that happens, individually. For me, I'm obsessed with exponential scale and building models and things that can be universally applied. So if there's no alignment personally on those three pillars, then it doesn't even pass over everything else. It could be, you could throw money at me, you could throw like limelight, which doesn't do much for me because I actually don't like to be out front and center. You can throw anything else you want, but like if it doesn't align with those pillars, then I got no business doing it.
That's wonderful. This is crazy. You're dropping bombs since the beginning. Thank you. And where does everything, all this mindset come from? I don't know. I know your background is, your parents are professionals, and your sister is getting her PhD. But most people, what's an advice perhaps that you will give to someone with a different perspective?
I mean, so I also think that a lot of my mindset or the way I'm able to articulate things relates
Yeah.
to superpowers.
Yeah.
And I know like recently, I'm pretty sure this is evergreen, but like there's been a big conversation on the internet about superpowers. And so for me, I like to tell people, if you can identify your trifecta, so your top three superpowers, and you lean into that with everything you're doing, then it's a lot easier for you to thrive, not just like survive life. And so mine are strategy, communication, and connection, which if you know me, then it's like,
Yeah.
well, that makes perfect sense. And so for me, like part of where this all comes from is I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking. I
Good.
literally block out like a minimum, at minimum, at least an hour, like 90 minutes a day just to walk. Like thinking while
Yeah.
walking, for me, walking really helps like
Yeah.
accelerate the synapses firing. So I
Oxygen.
schedule
Mhm.
time to think. And the other thing is a little bit of faith. Like I think that my job is to really look at how these superpowers align with my purpose and have help me have greater impact and service to the world. And so for me, I grew up and I still am Christian, but identify more as a very spiritual person. And so one of my favorite figures in the Bible is King Solomon, and he's known as the wisest man ever to walk the earth. And interestingly, what Solomon prayed for, which is what I pray for every single day, is wisdom and understanding so that he might, and I similarly might, have real impact on the world. And I think the more you pray and dig into gaining wisdom and understanding of how we ought to live, the more that opens up for you. You spend a lot of time ruminating, thinking. I know my shtick is like I build models to help explain things. Same thing you guys learned with Nia Project,
Yeah.
and like the triangle
Triangle.
model. So for me, it's just seeking always continuously more wisdom and understanding so that I might have more value.
Wonderful. So this is a pattern that I see in the people that I've invited. Most of the people I invited are people with some sort of success or intent to keep on learning. They call it kaizening. They call it, you're calling it prayer. Others call it the law of attraction. It all comes back to bringing the things together, being aware and conscious of what you're asking for, and being wisdom. So thank you. What are some maybe actionable steps that you will suggest to someone like Adolfo back in 2018 when I got started with you? And what would you say to Adolfo to maybe get closer to that wisdom?
I think there's a couple of very practical ways to distill a lot of what I'm saying into
Yeah,
practice. I'll just share with you like a couple things that I do that has helped me. So I
perfect.
have an acronym called SPACE that we incorporate kind of by default into NIA projects, fellowship experiences, but I do this every day. People have routines, morning routines, evening
Yeah,
routines, depending on whether their energy is maximum throughout the day. And whatever your practice is, like you do you. But me, I call it space. And
gotcha.
so I get up super early just because I don't need that much sleep and I go to bed early. But space really stands for spiritual connection, physical activity, accountability, awareness, creative time, and emotional engagement, right? And so spiritual for me is at once a day I am meditating and kind of like trying to extrapolate wisdom from at least one Bible verse. It's normally verse of the day,
Mm,
but in meditating on it, I'm able to find some application to life. Physical. So I try to, and I've been trying, especially during this moment, is to get in like a 5 mile walk plus a minimum of like HIIT workout or yoga, but mostly HIIT workout. So I'm trying to be in the best shape of my life. Accountability awareness is really, I'm a whiteboard person, so I get up and I put what I'm going to do like today based off of like I have this thing called blueprint strategy, which is strategy for your goals, and I'm kind of structured in how I try to execute because I'm always like juggling a lot of plates. So awareness of what you need to do intentionally
yeah,
allows for you to be 100% focused when you sit down for tasks. Creative, I'm a writer, so I try to get a minimum of like 90 minutes of writing in a day at minimum. Right now, I'm kind of finishing up a big writing project, so that'll jump up to a couple hours while I'm on break. But the other thing is emotional, and that's I have this like gratitude kind of journal template that I do, and I answer a couple of questions, which I'll share with you. Which, if you do this every day, I think it will help boost your wisdom. And so the things that I hit in my pages, some people call it morning pages, I call it like emotional engagement, is the intention, not the intention for the day, but a bigger, like I'm always thinking exponential. So like big intention for life. Um, the second one is I've struggled, as I mentioned, with unworthiness. And so reflecting on something that I do well that may have happened the day before, or something the day before may have kind of triggered as a reminder I think once you're aware that you struggle with something, positive counter affirmations are beneficial. And
Yeah.
then I look at a shadow element because I think you can't fully appreciate life without shadow. So really what I can learn from a negative aspect or feeling in my day prior, I list gratitude. So at least like 5 to 7 things I'm grateful for. Tomorrow it's going to be this podcast conversation. And then I write down one thing I learned. I think that wisdom comes from reflecting, and a lot of times you get so much input and consumption, but you don't stop and reflect on what is one thing I learned yesterday. And if you do this 365 days a year, you will have learned 365 new things. The other thing that I do is meditation. So that's where I'm like meditating on a particular Bible verse or something that spoke to me the day before, and really just look at how I apply that to my life. And then finally, since my superpowers connection, often while I'm walking or I go throughout the day, people just pop in my mind. So I try to write down the people that came to mind and make a intentional note to send energy towards them, reach out to them, follow up with them, and I would say 10 times out of 10, if somebody comes to my mind within 48 hours or the next couple of days or so, they will either reach out or I will reach out to them and they're saying, I wanted to connect with you and you were on my mind. So that's kind of my morning space, which I also think is a great recipe for building up your awareness and really being open to the wisdom that's all around us. It's just often we're not still enough to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wow, that was a lot. It's one of the most charged and actionable podcasts I ever had. Thank you.
Well, you know me.
I
All
know.
about, let's do
I
this.
knew it was going to be great. I knew it. People are going to be, I mean, some people have said, Adolfo, thank you for what you're doing. You know, you're doing great stuff. But this one is going to kill it.
Well, you are doing a great job in facilitating. As someone that facilitates a lot of conversations, I think that I've seen you grow so much from like the shy
Yeah.
guy right at like the workshop where you're just said, I want to thank you. And you're like, my name is Adolfo, blah, blah, blah. And now you're like speaking on Fellow Fridays, you're going places, traveling internationally and doing this podcast. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So that's my angle because I've been reflecting on myself and seeing that shy guy turn into whatever I'm going to turn in the future. And I want the same thing for my sister, my cousins, and everyone around me, my friends. So thank you. I think now that you talk about your morning, do you have maybe in a brief description? Do you want to talk about your night? Do you prepare your night?
No, I honestly like I work a lot because I'm right now trying to delegate and transition, but you know,
Gotcha.
I have
Yeah.
a lot of cylinders firing. And so, I mean, I'm trying, but let me be honest, like I'm failing, but I'm trying to shut down my computer by 7.
It happens.
Sometimes it's like 10 or 11, or 9, but I try if I can, like 90 minutes before I'm scheduled to go to sleep, turn off my computer, not electronics, because that's when you can watch Netflix or other
Right. Yeah.
Kindle. And then the other thing I try to do, which I think that this may have something to do with just being more aware, is I've started intermittent fasting,
Mm,
which I really like, and I didn't think I would like it, but I absolutely love it. And for me, that means I'm not eating late at night. And so I think that being able to not have like, food digesting while you're like reflecting either in the morning or in the evening, I think really helps out.
wonderful. Gotcha. So yeah, you have control over your morning and you're taking control over your nighttime now. Great. Um, we're getting closer to the end time. Any last thoughts? Any last power thoughts that you wanna share?
Power thoughts. I feel like if you put me on the spot, like it's not gonna
It's
happen.
not
It's
gonna
gotta be
happen.
extraneous. Well,
It's
maybe I guess the one thing I've been thinking a lot about is, so I did this post on Instagram, and you like digital marketing. I hate it. Like it is so awkward and uncomfortable for me. Like people like what I post and I'm always like,
yeah,
okay, cool. And people are like, when are you going to post more? Because I like it's a struggle for me to get 3 posts a week, but that's kind of like my current goal.
gotcha.
But I wrote something on Instagram that was kind of talking about this idea of letting go. And
Hmm.
so I think that, given the challenges of the most recent kind of larger environment and society, a lot of things going on that unprecedented. I think so. Letting go for me is probably the question I would ask people. I read this really great book called The Go Giver. And in that book, there's an anecdote about a lady that I want to say this is the anecdote about a particular entrepreneur that was really successful in scale. But what stood with me is she remarked that if your belief system does not serve you, you can change it. And for the first time in my life, that was the first time I realized, oh, wait, my belief system is often the result of conditioning, adverse childhood experiences that have not been addressed, and stories and judgments that I tell myself that have nothing to do with reality and everything to do with emotions. And so I think the power advice that I would offer is like think about what you can let go of. If your belief system doesn't serve you, you can let it go and create a new one, and really just create more awareness of what is inputting and influencing your identity of who you are, your the way, your mindset and how you see the world, and the actions that you're taking in furtherance of your goal. I think my favorite quote is go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life that you've imagined. And I really believe that that is true.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for today's episode podcast. No better way to finish this podcast than with a story and a quote. Thank you, Leigh Ann. Thank you so much. Before we go, though, where can people find you? I know you don't like to put yourself out there too much, but
so I am most active on Instagram, and actually let me look at what my Instagram handle is, because I always forget. So
don't worry, we're gonna have the links down below anyway.
So my Instagram is at Leigh Ann, Leighann, because Instagram doesn't allow hyphens, .Buchanan. So at Leighann .Buchanan, Buchanan. That's probably the best place to find me. It's the place that I'm most responsive, most active, and most up to date, to be honest, because my personal website hasn't been updated, but you can also visit that at leighannbuchanan.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, everybody, after watching this video, they're going to take action on everything. They're going to get a brand new notebook and apply it.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me. And this has been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Take care. See you guys later. Be obsessed.